Brett Kavanaugh back at the White House. You know, you were at a White House when a confirmation, a Supreme Court pick, got sort of blew up in the face of the president at the time. Different situation. Talk about what you think is happening behind closed doors right now as it relates to Brett Kavanaugh.
Well, certainly, and this is an environment that Brett Kavanaugh would understand and knows very well. Obviously, being in the White House, knowing when it's all hands on deck and people come together and really work through some difficult times. And this is certainly a challenge. I would imagine, you know, Brett, of course, he has said very publicly, he knows what he wants to say, and he believes, and he's hoping that people will believe him. And I'm sure he is reinforcing that at the White House because he needs to have all of the support of the administration, of course, behind him. And I think they're saying all the right things as well, that they want Judge Kavanaugh to be heard. Once again, we've already heard his expansive knowledge of history and Constitution and the law. We can't dispute that. But now it's his character that is on the line, and he needs to be heard, but so does the accuser. And they agree with that.
There's a lot of comparisons, too, to the sort of Anita Hill moment, right? Yeah. Senator Orrin Hatch, sort of then and now. We put together, we'll play it later in the show, sort of a back and forth of that. You have her now out with this new op-ed in the New York Times in which she says, let's learn from the lessons of 1991. Let's not repeat what happened then. One of the things Anita Hill talks about is refer to Christine Blasey Ford by name and not just as the accuser. So I want to ask you, when you look at sort of where we are now, one of the big things that has changed has been, of course, been this Me Too moment.
Sure.
And this Me Too movement, and that plays into this.
Sure, absolutely it does. And throughout our history, when there are periods of big social change, it really informs the way we move forward as a country. 1991 was that, and of course, it is a legacy that has lived on how Anita Hill been treated, how the senators treated it. It is a very, very different time. And I agree with one thing that Senator Jones said as well. I hope that senators on that committee will cede some time to people like Amy Klobuchar,
federal
who
prosecutor.
knows how to do this and is respectful.
Nancy, thank you for checking out our YouTube channel. Why don't you subscribe? It's really easy. Just click on that button down there. And for more news from MSNBC, click on any of these videos here for the latest interviews and highlights. You can get more videos from MSNBC with our newsletters. Head over to msnbc.com/newsletters to sign up.